Okay, and we're recording. Ready?
Can we record to this device?
We can try. Yeah, it doesn't have a record to this device option. It only has a record to the cloud option.
Yeah,
So,
the cloud is too full. So
yeah. It's, here.
That's view. Good. Okay, it's fine. Because it's just showing. You can go back. Use it. Okay, we got all the technical issues taken care of. I want to welcome you all and thank you all for being here. Of course, this is part of the time with your regular meeting, and then the final student council meeting for the year is in 2 weeks. But one of the things that is extremely important is deciding who's going to be the next student representative to the Board of Education. Harmony's term is coming to an end now that they are graduating. John Carlos is continuing for one more year as he becomes a senior. And so we have two people who are running to fill the Harmony spot for the next 2 years. So all schools will be voting at the end of the month on May 31st for this. And so we're going to turn it over. And most of you know me, but in case you don't, I'm Dr. Paul White. I'm the assistant superintendent, and I supervise almost all of the high schools. And looking forward to this event. And with us, we have Mr. Albert Lucas, who is the chief of staff for the Board of Alders. And he's, of course, hosting us here today. So if you give him a round of applause. And we'll turn it over to our current student rep, John Carlos Mercer, to begin this meeting.
How's it going, guys? Good morning, all. Welcome to the 2024 Student Representative Candidate Forum. We're going to start with a brief introduction of our candidates.
Yeah, my name is Vikram Dalal. I go to Global Cross High School, and I run track, cross country, student council, help out with the culinary team sometimes. Yeah, that's all.
Hello, I'm Janaili Cologne from High School and Community. I'm a sophomore. I run book club, a lot of community events. I do a lot of leadership in my school revolving Project Pride and our summer building camp, basically, for freshmen.
Great. Let's begin with our speeches. Vikram, do you want to start? Oh, you want to start with your speech?
Do I start?
Yeah.
What does it mean to represent 20,000 people in our New Haven Public Schools district? How can we be sure that each student's needs are met, regardless of how big or small their school is? These are the questions that filled my mind while applying to become a student representative. Our New Haven Public Schools and Board of Education thrive to help our young students learn and apply that knowledge to the future. Yet we should strive even further in helping improving mental health and wellness days, solutions to teacher shortages, and our school fundings. Before we address these goals, again, I would like to introduce myself, Janelle Eva Colon, a sophomore at High School and Community, the small school for students who want to do big things. Our school constantly fights to understand the meaning of social justice for all and what it means to be a leader both within our school and beyond it. I love the way my school has encouraged me to stand up for what is right and take action on my beliefs. As a leader in my school, I currently run book club along with book-related activities for my fellow students. I'm involved in Project Pride. For those who don't know what that is, it's essentially camp counselors for children in elementary and middle school. I work for Gather New Haven, taking on the role as a growing entrepreneur and learning business strategies to apply to the small business I'm currently creating with my coworkers. I work for the Yale Peabody Museum, where I'm constantly working with young kids, leading them in the right direction with crafts we make. I have also attended many leadership overnight trips that taught us the importance of leading, problem solving, and working together as a team to face challenges. I strive to be as impactful as I can be with taking on a leadership role, and I hope people find my words and actions as inspiring. I'm running for student representative because I want to continue to speak up for the change in our school systems. As a student representative, I would be the voice for small schools. HSC is one of the small schools in New Haven that, when put together, represent a large portion of our students. The voice of small schools are needed to be represented in the Board of Ed just as the larger schools currently are. I will do my best to make the quietest voices be heard, along with being someone people are comfortable to talk to about current issues within our system. We deserve a chance to speak our minds about what is happening in our high schools. These problems need to be addressed. We cannot settle for less. Our small schools like HSC should be given a chance to have a say in what the district decides. I will be the voice for small schools and advocate for the adversities we face. I grew up in New Haven, and I've lived in this community all my life. Moving from the Hill to Westville, plus around the Annex, I've been exposed to a lot of people in this town. New Haven is my home, and it's part of the story I tell when people ask who I am. Watching this community grow, there are people out there that care, that host events on the green, that create spaces for public team use, our New Haven soup kitchen. All of these things exist because people want to see people flourish. Having an inside voice in the students benefits our district in several ways, such as students have someone who has been through similar experiences as them and can voice their opinions. I have been interested in advocating for justice within our schools for a long time, and this is a chance for me to truly make a change within our school facilities. Yet this change cannot come true if it's not with the students by my side fighting for what we know is right. If I were to become a student representative, I want to be able to advocate for students' mental health. If we were able to bring in more resources for students who are feeling stressed, depressed, and angry, school won't feel as suffocating for that individual, as well as implementing more wellness days, normalizing asking for help, and eliminating the stigma against mental health. I want to be able to provide ideas and solutions to teacher shortages. Many schools don't have teachers and end up with no work for that class. Well, yes, that may be relaxing for students. Students are still being deprived from learning. Many teachers are even overworked, having to try and fill for those classes and subjects. So I was thinking possibly investing in substitutes, giving them lesson plans that still teach us, but is not too much for our substitute. With this, our students can still learn and make it easier on other teachers. One more thing is I want to address our funding issues. Funding has been controversial within the Board of Education. I've watched the Zooms on the board meetings, and I've been committed to doing my research, and I found that we truly do need to figure out how to appeal for more grants and donors. We were able to get in contact with people. I'm sure we could find something between the lines to still give students their field trips, funding for clubs, and more. With the goal and focus, I do believe our district can benefit from our words. I promise to do the best that I can if I were to be voted for student representative and to make a change in the system. Truly, I just want to see all the students using as many resources as they can to make them as successful. Everyone is allowed to have their voice heard, and what better advice to get on how to improve schools than our everyday students experience this reality. I appreciate you all listening to me today, and thank you so much for giving me the chance to explain what a student representative means to me. All of you are incredible, and have a great day.
Start your speech.
Yeah, hi guys, my name is Vikram. I go to Wilbur Cross High School. I've been involved in a lot of leadership at that school. I've been involved in organizing food drives, coat drives. I'm currently trying to partner with the Yale Community Kitchens and the Downtown Union Soup Kitchen to have a school or a student-led soup kitchen where they cook and give food to the homeless. I run track. I've helped volunteer at track meets, and I've been to multiple schools across the district. I went to Easums for middle school, Worthington Hooker for elementary school, and now at Cross. And I've seen a lot of people be affected by the community around them and injustices they face. As student representative, I do hope to organize small-scale changes or potentially large-scale changes district-wide. First and foremost, the big issue with funding is the bathrooms. They're really bad across the district at every school, maybe the exception of Easums, and they've been really super difficult to fix. I think me and the current representative have a similar mindset and goals to help fix that problem. And with that, and us being adamant about policy change and regulations, I think there can be some real change occurring. This issue's been well covered, and the media coverage, the News 8 channel reporting on that is probably super impactful, and I think we can leverage that to help fix it. And I'm willing to go to the media and help say, this is an issue, not only our funding, but the bathrooms, and there's clear consequences towards the students. Everyone's heard that, and I don't think that needs to be harped on as much. I think everyone wants to help with the funding, but there's some other changes, small scale, that I want to see across the district. A primary concern of mine is the environment and how that affects our community and the carbon footprint of our school district. I've talked to members of the environmental club at Wilbur Cross and Easums, and there's been some serious help and changes into implementing positive environmental rules and policies into our schools. At Cross, there's composting at every lunch wave. There's regular cleanups of East Rock Park. We have a community garden in the back of our school. And I think doing those things and putting them into regulation for every school across the district can make serious change for the environment and help grow our communities. I was just thinking about it, and Hill House could help clean up Hyde Park every month or so, and there could be a community herb garden outside of their school or outside of Easums where people really want to eat it. And I think it would really help people to grow their school community as well. So seeing policies and regulations that involve the environment and small-scale changes across the district would really be impactful, and it's really important to me. The other main thing that I'm really focused on is the issue of attendance. New Haven schools, all their problems stem a lot from the attendance, whether it's the school culture, whether it's just the school environment and the participation in school events. And we have graduation rates that are in the drain. And I think the reason for that is because the way we punish people who miss school is wrong. I think we need to reward people for missing school instead of having a looming threat of punishment as soon as they come back. I want to potentially get funding or have an end of the month field trip for people who change from being chronically absent to showing up 80% of the 3 to 4 weeks before the end of the month. It can be district-wide. That kind of thing would really impact people to force them to go to school. And if some people go to school then their friends might come and people are going to have to make the decision of whether they want to stay at home alone or come to school with their friends with the potential of reward. I think changing the mindset around attendance could really also change the mindset of those high schoolers who skip every day. Yeah, forcing kids to come to school and giving them a reward for coming instead of punishing them could put them in seats and get them to learn. And that commitment to school is generally in New Haven leading to graduation. I mean, the school system in New Haven basically is set up where if you come to school most of the time, you're going to graduate. And that sets people up exponentially more than if they drop or fail out. I hope you guys support me. I think those are some of the main issues I'm concerned about. I'd love to see more funding, but I think if we have a broader, more specific goals in mind, there can actually be some real change, district-wide, small scale. And I'm really focused on the environment in our schools and the environment in our climate, in our world. And hopefully that is enough to convince you guys. And let me know if you have any suggestions or questions. Feel free to contact me.
So now we're going to open up the floor to questions. Does anyone have any questions for our candidates?
I have a question for Lieutenant.
Vikram.
My question is, how will you focus specifically on representing schools with a smaller population?
I hope to focus on representing those schools by
If, John Carl, if you could repeat the question so that it's heard on Zoom afterwards, since there are no mics. And
The question was, how does Vikram, who comes from Oak Cross, a very large school, hope to represent smaller schools throughout the district?
I hope to do this by actually focusing on the policy and the regulations district-wide. Some of the environmental stuff we've implemented at Cross, I think can be implemented as rules for our district. There has to be composting in every cafeteria and herb gardens or community gardens around there. And I think that will impact small schools as well. Just want to see small scale changes widespread across the district, not just at the big schools.
I saw a question in the back. Do you still have that question?
What is the type of rewarding that you will be given to these students that miss a day of school? Is it more of like a restorative justice or more of like you're just rewarding them to perform for missing school?
The question was, how are you going to?
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Say it again?
No, I'm repeating for the Zoom, don't worry.
Oh,
The question was, how are you going to reward people who were absent but then improve on their presence at school?
I don't think I elaborated enough. I was thinking that if someone improves from being chronically absent the year before or for 1 month and then shifts and comes to school because of that reward, like 80% of 3 to 4 weeks, they get to go on a district-wide field trip for people who have shifted from being chronically absent to in school. So I think across the district, if that can be implemented, then there'll be enough people to go on a field trip, I don't know, go to a movie, go to a park, have a field day, that kind of thing. Some reward like that, maybe a snack.
What about the kids that do show up all the time? What would they get to see?
The question was, what about the kids who show up consistently to school? How would they be rewarded as well?
The kids who show up every day to school are, you can say, being rewarded because they get an education and they're committed. But if students want to see rewards for people who come every day, I will gladly implement that. It's just that to fix the attendance problem, you have to focus on people who don't.
My question about like the whole rewarding to school for bad attendance is how would you get them to come to school? And also how is it fair that children that come to school every day will not be rewarded for their education and for their hard work?
Can you repeat the first part one more time? The first part of the question, could you repeat that one more time?
The first part, how do you get students to come to school for that? Like you just tell them, oh, you get a field trip and that's enough motivation.
So like advertising, like how would you advertise that
Yeah,
also?
how would you get them to come to school?
So the question is, how would you advertise, how would you advertise the rewards you would give to kids who come to school? And how is it fair to the students who already go to school?
And also, where will you get the funding from for these field trips?
And where would you get the funding from for these field trips?
Can you repeat that?
Where would you get, how would you advertise your policy of rewarding kids who are chronically absent?
You reward kids for coming to school consistently for like a month, and I think that can happen if chronically absent kids come to school every so often. And if you can find them in their classes and say there will be a reward for coming to school for the next 3 weeks, then they might come. And if one person comes, then it starts a domino effect of their friend might come because they want to hang out with them instead of staying at home. And if more than half of the friend group is at school and being rewarded for being at school, then people will be more inclined. Like they'll feel like they have to decide between being alone or being with friends.
I had a question about, you mentioned gardens. How would you replace that with the schools that can't have gardens? Like specifically, as someone from co-op, we can't have gardens since we're in the middle of the city.
The question was, how would you accommodate schools that can't have gardens because of their location?
There's been some schools that can't accommodate gardens, and that's okay. I think it doesn't have to be 100% every school has to have a garden. They just have to change some of the regulations to improve the environment. I think reducing carbon footprint, fostering more people to walk to school or to bike to school, adding bike racks maybe would help. And I think that is more important than focusing on having every single thing implemented in every single school.
So,
Can you explain more on the regulations we're talking about?
Yes. So at Cross, there's been an initiative from the Environmental Club to have composting in cafeterias and have community educational forums, I guess, to educate people on the environment. And if we can have something like that in every school every so often, I think it can make huge benefit. Some of the regulations would be, right now there's nothing in the policies about composting or maintaining the environment around the school and cleaning up the parks or the streets around the school. And even if that's not viable for every school, if everything isn't viable for every school, just changing the policies. Like composting can be possible regardless. There's a lot of wasted food in our schools, and I think if there's actually some policies on that, there could be widespread change.
What factors do you think contribute to the students being chronically absent?
and I want this question to be for both of you guys, because I want to hear from you too as well.
Repeat the question.
All right, sorry. What factors do you think contribute to chronic absenteeism? Let's have you start, yeah.
Definitely the mental health aspect. Most people stay at home because they can also feel that school isn't a safe place for them. And also could be too much happening at school. There's too many people at school and it's hard for them to focus. And these people don't always get the resources they need, especially talking about a bigger school or even in smaller schools. Some people are so focused on just one main population, you could say, and forgetting about the others.
The mental health aspect is a huge part of it, and I like to say that starts a serious cascade of pitfalls. If one person stays home and they feel like they're checked out of school, that can spread, and a lot of people end up just deciding to stay home, and the culture around them and their mindset of school isn't helped because their friends are not at school. So if you can get some of those people to come to school and commit to school, then there can be some change just from a domino effect type of situation.
For both of you guys, you guys mentioned having connections for donors for people. Like, what exactly are those people are you guys looking at?
What are your connections to the donors that you guys mentioned in your speeches?
So personally, I work for a nonprofit organization Gather New Haven, and we have, the program itself has a lot of connection with people because since they're a nonprofit, they have a bunch of people that want to donate to our program. So I was personally thinking if I could possibly get those people to also talk to them to explain also New Haven Public Schools were in need of, donations. I feel like that would be a huge impact, and also more connecting our mayor since he is the representative of all of us. I'm sure somehow he can find connections that way, so.
Yeah, I've volunteered at Iris and Sanctuary Kitchen, and Wilbur Cross has a long-standing volunteer kind of relationship with Iris. A lot of our students volunteer there, and we donate there pretty often. So getting in touch with the leadership there is not hard, and finding their donors and pleading and being adamant to them about helping our schools could definitely be viable. I've also learned that Downtown Evening Soup Kitchen is very interested in helping out with our student body, and they're interested in having a food drive or a soup kitchen with students cooking. That can probably transfer over to other positive donations.
You had mentioned you wanted to add more wellness days into like the calendar for pretty much all schools. What would you want the wellness days to look like?
So I know currently they.
Question. Oh, right, I'm sorry. What would you want to, what would you want those mental health days that you said you would add to the calendar look like?
So I was thinking currently right now they're like Zoom meetings. I've seen they have like a list of activities and teachers can join in for their students, but I feel like that isn't as hands-on. So I feel like definitely maybe possibly making our own activities and giving student leaders to like lead an activity that's more hands-on, isn't in a Zoom meeting, giving people essentially a free day to communicate more, be more socially out there or stuff like that.
Are you guys planning on making these things mandatory? Because they're not mandatory at school from what we have heard. There's mandatory to make you do stuff, but things like that. Like we just had a wellness day. We still had regular class. We weren't doing hands-on activities or relaxing. We heard that it wasn't mandatory for teachers to participate in the wellness day.
Wait, so is your question, is it mandatory?
Are you guys planning on making it mandatory?
Are you guys planning on making wellness days mandatory?
I would like to make it mandatory due to I feel like school can be stressful a lot of the times, and being able to have essentially a free day would be helpful, and not to have class because then students could really reflect and do more.
I honestly with both habits. I was wondering what do you all believe can be done, or that you might advocate to do to make school more engaging academically? Because I know it's a widespread problem that students just simply aren't engaged with the learning itself. And if students aren't enjoying learning and engaged with the curriculum, then they're not going to want to come to school.
How do you guys plan on making the curriculum more engaging for students?
Well, the main way I wanted to make that was offering a reward at the end of every month or every semester to people who are chronically absent. And when they come, it forces them to be there, and they'll learn and they'll understand and maybe change their mindset around school and be more engaged and come every day because of that reward. And that mindset change will definitely lead to people being more engaged.
I would definitely say yes.
The question was, what is your plans to make school more engaging for students?
Definitely probably implementing more hands-on like work lessons, because while sitting down and listening to a teacher lecture you all day you're not gonna learn. So I feel like definitely including the students more, giving the students leadership when it comes to class will definitely engage.
over there. Gentleman with
Could you
the.
elaborate on the plan you mentioned about the substitutes? Like, are you planning on having the substitutes teach the students while the teacher is out, or are you talking about that?
Could you elaborate on your plan on substitute teachers?
So I would definitely say if there is a teacher position out and the teacher is out for that day and a substitute comes in, I feel like it would be helpful if the teacher could make a possibly quick lesson plan. So at least that when the students do go into class, they are engaged and have something to complete. And also it isn't just busy work, it's stuff that can actually teach them.
For the rewards that you were talking about, how are you getting the funding? Will it be like fundraisers or will it be like ad hoc?
Where will you be getting the funding for these field trips that you will be rewarding kids who are currently absent?
As of currently, there are no funding for those field trips because nothing like that exists still. There's one thing that I think the superintendent runs it, where at the end of the year, people who commit to their intended school by September, and if they achieve that, they get a little like pizza party or something. And I think there's a way to transfer that funds and the things to go to that, because that's a full year commitment with consistent checkups with the students involved in that program. And I think transferring that would be helpful, but also fundraising and telling donors about how this is a serious problem. And I think that's the way we fix it.
This is a question to both candidates. How do you feel about extra security in school? Do you think it helps us as a student body, or do you think it hurts us?
Do you guys think that extra security helps the student body or disrupts them? Yeah.
In my opinion, I feel like it disrupts us due to you don't want to go to school feeling threatened, feeling unsafe, and having more security automatically makes you think, oh, is something going to happen? What's going to happen? So I feel like definitely that's some security.
Yeah, I think the increase in security can be really detrimental to a lot of people's mental health. I think there should be either a lot of the security guards make real connections with the students, and either changing their uniform and making them feel less threatening and having them coming in regular clothes could help them actually be less threatening to some students and continue their strong connections and bond with a lot of students. That is definitely a motivation for them to come to school or for them to continue learning. And I think that's super valuable. You can't just take that away.
How do you guys feel about the quality of security guards right now?
How do you guys feel about the quality of security guards right now?
All right. Well, I've really only experienced security guards at Cross and ESUMS, and from what I've seen, there's a lot of apprehensiveness about actually like consistently being like peaceful resolutions of fights or disagreements, and all the time they just jump in and separate people and push and shove. And I think that's a problem, but that's more of a training issue. I think as people, the security guards are really helpful. No one's mean. No one's like a looming threat. No one's just out there just strolling the halls patrolling. I think people are talking to students and asking people why they're skipping and really just creating real connections with some of the students.
To add on, I feel like the quality of our security guards, again, they are a little pushy. They are a little rough, and that is like mentioned again within their training system. But as of I know, my school, HSC, only has like 3 security guards, and most of the students have connections with them. Most of the students greet them most of the time, and I feel like that's a good number to keep.
So you think having a small amount of security guards is beneficial to the community?
Yes.
How do you plan to put money into extracurricular activities in schools currently, like such as the performing arts and things like that?
how do you guys plan to put money into extracurricular activities?
Do we? So, I think there should be more fundraising from the district and from the government level. I think that a lot of the fundraising at schools kind of goes not so great because a lot of the schools are small and a lot of people don't have enough money to donate. And if the district and the federal government actually helps us start fundraisers, then we can actually reach people who are better, more well off and older and not involved in the public school system.
I feel like having our district fundraise, but also having the students fundraise, putting that money combined, because having students essentially leading and taking the responsibility upon themselves, people find that very impactful. So I think people would be willing to donate.
About the substitute, about the substitutes teaching the lessons, how would that work? Would the substitutes have to have a degree in teaching that class? Because at least in my perspective, our school has subs switching classrooms, and sometimes it's a teacher that actually teaches substituting for another classroom. How would that work?
How would you, could you elaborate more on how the substitute teachers would teach? Would they have a degree in the classroom? Could you move a second? Good question. Take a second.
I think mainly is to have a previous teacher make the lesson plan. I don't think the substitutes exactly need a degree to explain. I feel like they could have a second to look through the lesson plan, do their own personal little research about it, but then teaching it, I feel like, yeah, as long as it's not anything too broad.
Just going back to the reward system, how confident are you with this plan of yours to implement this rewarding system? And what are the chances of not working and actually causing it to become a worse issue?
How confident are you that your program for chronic absenteeism will be beneficial to New Haven Public School students rather than detrimental?
I'm fairly confident that it would actually work and it'd be beneficial. Having a field trip every month or every semester isn't a crazy goal, and that a lot of schools have field trips all the time, so I think that's attainable. I also think the main point is that having it be so frequent will actually create a type of culture where people want to go to school. There's a reason they're there, and if a lot of people feel that there's a reward and there's a reason for them going to school, then slowly more and more people will come. And yeah.
Will grades be involved in this versus just showing up? Because in that case, if it's just showing up and kids will skip on purpose and start showing up just to go on this field trip. And elaborating on the field trip part, most of our schools don't even go on field trips already, ours in particular. How will you get the whole district to go on a field trip?
Well, I think
Let me just. Will grades be a factor in the field trips, right? And considering that the majority of schools don't already go on field trips, how would you make this a district-wide policy?
Well, I think implementing grades and seeing if people start passing their classes instead of just showing up is super smart. I thank you a lot for that suggestion. I didn't even think of that. But I think district-wide, the school district can have people go on a field trip, because I don't think many people will change from being chronically absent to there for 3 or 4 weeks. And that means that there's not going to be 100 people or 200 people on one field trip. It'll probably be more close to 20, the size of a class. And implementing grades into that would be a great idea. But I think the district can afford to have a field trip every semester for 20 kids, 20, 30 kids.
It's for the reward system again. So you're talking about giving people that are consistently absent reward. Don't you think that they're gonna get used to this? They're gonna get used to having a reward, and then eventually once it's not giving you the reward, they're just gonna go back to their normal route of scheduling and not go to school?
Do you think that because with these students will be rewarded for going to school, once the reward is no longer offered, they will stop?
I certainly hope not. I think that if you are, obviously, if you're chronically absent and then switch to being committed to school for like a month, then you're not eligible for the reward anymore because you weren't chronically absent in the month leading up to it. Furthermore, I think that it'll force people to have a mindset shift, and maybe people will cheat the system, but I just don't think, because I think the reward system isn't going to be something that's super publicized and super everywhere. And if it does ever get to that point, then that means that we've impacted enough people to have a reason to come to school. And if they have a reason to come to school, it's going to force their mindset to change around school.
As someone who has been on both sides of not going to school consistently to going to school consistently, I'd say I went to school every single day. It was just not going to class. So that was the difference. And I see your vision, but at the same time, I feel like maybe instead of rewarding those students, you should see more into depth and do more of a restorative justice approach to figure out why. Because some kids, they just don't go because they don't want to go. Meanwhile, others have actual reasoning and things behind them, and just giving a reward doesn't really seem beneficial to anyone. So I just want to see, like, how do you feel like would you just give a reward, or would you be doing that research and looking behind, like, to why they're not going?
So you're trying to, like, what other factors contribute to chronic?
Yeah, what other factors would contribute to it?
Right. Yeah, so what factors do you think contribute to kids just not going to class in general? And I guess this is a good, I feel like, I think I already asked this, but do you think?
It was more solely on the restorative justice part.
Right,
Restorative justice is such as, like, let's say a kid is, let's put it in this way. A kid is maybe absent from school, maybe they can talk to a bunch of counselors, talk to people, how to implement a plan for them to come to school more, rather than giving them a reward system that will only motivate them for the reward. Actually implementing, putting their parents, putting peers maybe in to actually help them come to school would actually be more better rather than having a reward system.
Mm-hmm.
Can I elaborate on that? I also feel the same thing because, see, this say 20 to 30 students are only going on this field trip. We have thousands of kids in our district, high school alone, trying to get graduation rate. You're only gonna get about 2 students from each school to go on this field trip. Like, that is not gonna bring up the percentage for graduation rate at all. Like, I personally don't agree with this thing. Now, sorry to keep asking you the same question. We just wanted to know more about it because it just doesn't really seem possible. And in that sense, I feel like it shouldn't have been brought up to this because, like, we don't want things to be said and not later on be completed or tried.
I have another thing to add to that. A lot of people don't go to class to the slow pace because of the teaching style of teachers. Some people don't like the way they teach. Some people like being hands-on, but others just hand their work. Others teachers just hand work to the students and just expect them to do it. I feel like you guys need to do most of the research on the way teachers teach, and not only make the teachers teach the way they want to teach, but also expand on their knowledge so that they can teach students in multiple different ways, hands-on, from hands-on to just handing them work. Because we different people with different.
I have something else to add to that. What about students that don't care about rewards alone? Like, how do you change with a reward if something, like, you know, because there's students who really don't care. How will you change something if they don't care about the reward in the first place?
How will you help students who are chronically absent who won't care about it?
I'm going to try to address all those questions.
I know that's it.
No, it's fine. Obviously, I think it's a really complex and deep diving issue, and I think a lot of things you brought up were very valid, but changing the home life or the injustice that a certain student faces, or what was that thing? people who don't want to come, like if they're not motivated by reward, changing that and teacher training for the people, like people aren't engaged in class, like training those teachers, all of those are, they're important to this subject, but they're not going to be changed in a 2-year term. And I think if we can get kids to actually come to school and convince their friends to come to school and have them a reason to be there, some of them will have a mindset change. And obviously, I don't think that this program will impact thousands of kids who are, around thousands of kids who are absent every day. But I do think that it can start a trend where change can occur. So long term, there's no final goal for this. I just think that improving chronic absenteeism for the people who actually want to commit to school, and I think looking at their grades, seeing if they could be average, the average students after being chronically absent for whatever, a month or a semester, seeing if that is just a start, and long-term changes with teacher training and injustices within our community and home life. If someone has a job that's just difficult to address in a term, this my term.
Tyler,
How do you plan on improving the graduation rate?
how do you plan on improving the graduation rate? Is this question for both candidates or just for Vikram? Just for Vikram.
Yeah, so my idea in my program, I think if enough kids, and not even, it doesn't have to be a percentage, but people coming to school will not force, but it'll make more people, their friends coming to school, and people who are committed to school in New Haven generally graduate. There's not some giant blocker outside of commitment for graduation.
Going back to the district fundraiser, could there be a way to help with better food options? And if we all get free food, how can you implement better food options with students?
So the question is, how can you fundraise for better food, for better lunches, better lunch options?
Or if you can influence better food options.
If they can influence the options students have. Okay. And this is for both candidates. Okay. How do you guys think you can influence the food options that students have available in their lunches through fundraisers? Right. So.
I feel like definitely, yeah.
That's a very difficult question. So from my understanding, you can definitely, if as student representatives, they could definitely talk to people in charge of that. I'm pretty sure that's Dr. Yarborough, if I'm correct. But yeah, it's not impossible to change food options that students can get.
Can I ask you guys' opinion on the ban list or the do not bring list for schools? Because I know for my school and for many other schools, security guards have taken away scissors, hair picks, combs, and I even had a friend being taken a deck of cards away because it was promoting gambling. You guys have any plans to change this?
So bans and what?
Like ban lists, because they have a list of what you cannot bring to school.
So what is the candidate's opinion on ban lists?
I feel like some of the things they are taking away, I do find it kind of, I would say, absurd. I've had a friend that they took away her safety scissors, even though they were safety scissors. So I feel like definitely fixing the list, but also essentially educating the security guards.
I have a question for Vikram. I feel like the point of high school is to get students ready for the real world and getting a job and sustaining themselves. How is the reward system going to help get them ready for that real world situation?
How will the reward system get people ready for the real world when they have to go to jobs and be present regardless if there's a reward?
I know a big issue for people is that there's not really a reason for them to be in school if they're not graduating. And if there's a reason for them to be in school, and even if they don't graduate, they have access to counselors and access to trusted and like well-informed, educated adults, like security guards even, or the principal or the lunch ladies, who can all influence to make positive decisions for their like do this, get a job, go to trade school, go to vocational, that kind of stuff. And if they're not at school, they're not going to get that.
How can the student reps work on getting students more information about the current issues?
Having the student reps sit up.
Yeah, like more information out about the issues.
How can student representatives get more information about the problems that affects our school district?
I feel like definitely attending those. I know part of becoming a student representative is attending those board meetings, and they talk about local issues that they have. So I feel like definitely attending those and then hearing their opinions on it, but also having student voices on them could really.
You get information about problems in the district.
How can the student reps like get information out to the students?
Oh, I see what you mean. So how can student representatives explain to the student body the problems that affect our school district?
Yeah, so us going to those Zoom meetings and then having essentially like student council meetings like this, where the student reps also come in and basically explain what the whole Zoom was about and what your guys' view is on it.
I think leveraging social media is super important. I think there isn't one now, but there should be a student representative Instagram page or Snapchat, not Snapchat. An Instagram page where after every meeting, the student rep comes in and tells everyone, this is what the most important talking points in this meeting that impact the student body the most.
I have one question for both of you guys. What does your ideal New Haven Public School District look like? Like, what does the classroom look like? What does teaching look like? What do facilities look like?
I imagine facilities to look more, I guess, not as many students in the hallways, more students in the classrooms, teachers doing more hands-on lessons to engage the students, students and teachers being respectful to one another. And again, this isn't always, I guess, plausible, but I believe it can happen.
Yeah, I think respect is a big part of it, just between the teachers and the students and all the administrators and teachers and their students and that kind of thing. But ideally, I think the New Haven School District has each individual school offering something, and that's what they try to do now, but each school offers something different, and that is really important. And if we can really leverage that, and if that becomes a reality, like if ESAMS becomes this hub of, technology and smart STEM-focused people, and co-op becomes a hub of people focused on the arts, and if we can really focus in on that stuff, I think that'd be really cool.
I have a question for both of you guys. It's, do you see your guys' like plans as ideal or as more like dreams that like you hope for it to become? Like, do you like actually see yourself like getting the money, getting the people and the schools actually getting into this in a good amount of time while you guys are like still up there? Or do you think that this will take like more time that people will come up after you and like have the same ideas?
Do you think your goals will be completed, your hopes and your plans for New Haven Public Schools be completed within your term, or do you think it will require another student representative to carry your torch?
I think the environmental issue can absolutely be completed within my term. Small-scale policy changes like that across the district, like composting, can be implemented really easily. There's obviously students at every school who would be interested in composting at the cafeteria for community service hours and incorporating clubs that need community service hours and people who need them to graduate or get New Haven Promise. That people would be really willing to compost and start a community garden. On the other hand, the plan for the reward system, I think the reward system could be implemented within my term, but chronic absenteeism and the graduation rates is really complex and that cannot be fixed within one person's term. We're just trying to start a trend of people being committed to school.
Yeah, let's have.
This is Rebecca.
Wait, hold on. We also have.
Sorry. Definitely, I believe
The question was, do you think that your goals and your plans for New Haven Public Schools can be completed in your term alone, or will it require another student representative to continue and try to complete your plan?
I feel like definitely the substitute idea could be something that could be completed in my term due to it's not as dreamy. It's more like teachers could provide lesson plans and substitutes can't teach. That's essentially their job. I feel like definitely our funding issues won't be as completed in my term. That's something more throughout the years. I believe it can essentially rise up.
Oh, we're gonna take you, and then we're gonna also take the person back afterwards, and then, yeah, and then we'll do Lily.
So this is Rebecca. A large part of your campaign, or at least the portion that we're all worried about, is the reward system. And before, you stated that you didn't plan to get it done in 2 to 3 years. That was your goal. But then you stated that you think it could be done in your term if you were elected. So my thing is, if you know that it could not be completed in your term, why would you almost promise us or tell us that you want to get it done if you know you cannot?
I think there may have been a misunderstanding. What I was saying was that you guys were very concerned about the graduation rates and the chronic absenteeism, and that's not something that can be fixed within 2 or 3 years. But I did state, and I do still think that a reward system for people who change their mindset can be implemented within my term.
My question was, you say you wanted, this is a huge idea to be a reward system, have these field trips, and you don't know where the funding is coming from, and quite frankly, the current Board of Ed, from what I know, may like the idea, but will not put the funding for the idea. What makes you think, and have you talked to anyone about this idea? Because ideas are great, but to put it into practice and talk to the people in power, because as students, as much as we have voice, we don't have power. How are you going to convince the people in power who may love the idea, but are not willing to put the money in?
How do you convince people in power to support your idea, even though they may not have the funds for it?
Well, I've talked to our principal, Matt Brown, about this reward system and how, if it's even feasible and if it would actually impact students. And he, like you said, thinks that it is possible and that it will affect and positively impact a lot of students. The funding would be an issue, but it's not as monumental a task as fixing graduation rates. It's more absentee rates. It's more just a way to convince some students to come to school. It doesn't have to be everybody all at once. That's an impossible task and impossible to fund, but a field trip every semester or every other month, I think that's feasible within the current funding.
My question was, what is your plan to help schools not only get more staff members, but actual teachers and subs with a low fund that they should get?
Say that one more time. Say that one more time.
What is your plan to not only help schools get more staff members, but actual teachers and subs with a low fund that the district gave us?
So how do we provide classes with more teachers and substitutes with the low funds? How do we provide classrooms with teachers and substitutes with our low funds? Difficult question.
Essentially, I would stick with just finding donors and fundraising, but it's not always going to be that easy to be able to find more teachers and more subs because this is a small community. New Haven is small, so, and I'm not sure about pay rates for teachers and all of that, so.
How do you plan to provide classrooms with teachers and substitutes with low funds? If I could just add on to that real quick, a lot of classrooms I think it's more so a problem of maintaining teachers. New Haven Public Schools has that's one of the biggest problems in New Haven Public Schools is retaining teachers. And I feel like it comes both from a pressure aspect, to teach a classroom, multiple classrooms of like 26 students with very low resources. And also, they're also looking at other districts who could pay more, who could pay more and put them in a less difficult situation. And so I feel like the problem is not really supplying teachers, but necessarily keeping them in New Haven Public Schools is the problem. But on top of that, there's also an aspect of respect from students too. We know that teachers face a lot of disrespect from students. I feel like that's very good. We can all agree on that, right? Yeah? Yeah? No?
No, I don't agree on that. Especially the teachers in co-op, they are very disrespectful, even if the students do not inflict this respect onto them. Because most of the students at co-op, and I don't know anybody else at their schools, but we respect our teachers. Right. It's just they don't reciprocate it.
They don't reciprocate respect there? No.
And especially, it's not just on the line of respect, it's the line of race as well, because most of our teachers are not color, so they can be racist. So why would we respect someone that is towards mostly students of color?
Okay, I see.
So I have a question as well. How do you feel on implementing background checks on teachers and substitutes for both candidates?
How do you feel on implementing background checks for both candidates? How do you plan on implementing background checks for teachers coming into New Haven Public Schools?
I don't currently have a plan on implementing background checks for teachers. I think it's already in the policies. I'd have to take a look at those policies and see what they do. But I also do think that incorporating some people who have been reformed in the prison system and have completed their time would be really important in connecting with a lot of the students in the district, and having someone who's a clear role model would be really helpful for a lot of students.
How about the mixed domestic violence charges?
Against teachers?
Yes. Should they
Again.
be hired?
Again.
Should you repeat that? I didn't hear what you said.
She said, wait, was the first part of the question? She said, what about if teachers have domestic charges, right?
Yes.
Or if they have domestic charges?
Again, I have to look at the policies and understand what our current regulation with that is, but in my opinion, I don't think that someone who's had a domestic charge very seriously should be teaching students.
Can we just have to ask, what do you think of running background checks on teachers who are going to New Haven Public Schools?
I feel like definitely implementing that, but I'm positive that it is implemented. Yeah, but I feel like definitely they should be more in depth, because we should not be having teachers in our Haven Public Schools that want that essentially hurt us.
Dr. Paul White.
Just had one question. Wanted to go back to the question about student power. One of the big things is communication. As student reps, you will be sitting with 7 or other members of the board. How do you plan to advocate with the board to hear the students' voice? How will you work on that?
How do you plan on advocating student voice on the Board of Education with 6 other members, right?
Right, it's 9, the 2 students and 7 adult members.
How do you plan on advocating student voice with 7 other members of the Board of Education?
Definitely having meetings like this where we meet with a bunch of students and you give us student representatives questions that you want to be answered, things that you want to see implemented, and student representatives will try their best to explain it to the board, explain why they're important, and try their hardest to fight for what.
So we already do that, they say by doing 7 months?
Yeah.
It depends on our board of ed members.
So that
I said, don't we already do that every month?
we have monthly meetings with student council from every school, you guys are always there. Like, I don't think that was doing it. We already do that. You guys already ask us questions, you already have stuff like that. I think there needs to be more than just going to the board of ed and being like, oh, they said this.
I think getting petitions from all the students or a lot of the students from the schools to voice their support for certain issues is super important, and I think we should see that more. One way we could do that is through educational seminars that we've seen at Cross. There was a petition for, and maybe you guys were part of it, where the climate movement held protests and came outside of City Hall here. And a lot of that was started because of lots of support from Cross students, and implementing that into the city meetings and showing the magnitude of the student support would be important.
I think my question is based off like prior knowledge from being at these meetings for the past couple of years. One thing that tends to happen is like we'll all get in a circle and we'll all talk about something and we'll start work, but these ideas sometimes die in the meetings.
Mm-hmm.
How will you ensure that the ideas that are talked about in these citywide student council meetings don't just go dead, and that like these ideas actually get back to the students in each school?
How will you ensure that ideas formed in the student citywide meetings won't just die when you get to the Board of Education, but rather actually live on and, you know, manifest itself?
I think just being very adamant about our beliefs and student beliefs is super important. It's hard to do that. It's hard to do that. It's hard to just not give up, and it's a painful bureaucracy that we have to go through to get real change, and just staying disciplined and determined to get your goals is probably the only way to do that.
How will you make sure that ideas formed in citywide meetings, citywide student council meetings, don't just die when they leave the room? You know what I mean? Like, they don't just, you know, we have these ideas, but there's no action afterwards, after we form them.
Definitely.
I think a good way to rephrase the question is, what strategies do you think we have as students that we can take advantage of in order to really, like, not only get our points across, but also, like, you know, leverage and actually have them implemented in policy, like protesting or things of that nature?
Definitely say just advocating for them, essentially. Maybe even creating
I think a way to respond to that is just telling the Board of Ed and the people in charge there that there's a massive student support for certain issues. If these meetings, these citywide meetings, could get a petition signed for something, for anything that we think of, taking that to the Board of Ed would give them like 150 signatures per meeting every month, and just showing that support and maybe spreading it out throughout all the schools, I think would be really impactful.
We're gonna take 3 more questions. Lily, you can go, and then Michaela.
Okay, I have 2 questions, but I'll make it short. So I know that Victor already mentioned, that you'd be doing something for the environmental impact in school. I was wondering if you were planning on doing anything like that, or if not, that's okay, just an idea.
Definitely. Actually, HSC is, we also have a bunch of environmental. We're currently working on gardens in our school. We also have a senior who made his capstone on composting in our lunchrooms. So he currently, every lunch, he waits in the corner next to trash cans, and we give our stuff. He shows us how to separate them, and we use that to compost. That's essentially something that I would like to see in other schools, but currently that's what's happening in our school for our environment.
Okay, thank you. For the second question, is that you mentioned having more hands-on curriculum, which I think we can all agree is a really great thing for a lot of students. But how specifically are you planning on making that actually
Definitely, I guess, educating the teachers, getting teachers having them to do more research, because at the end of the day, they're the teachers, they're the ones teaching us. This is their job to make us students engaged. So definitely possibly implementing training for stuff like that.
This question's for both candidates. So, another reason why graduation rates are low is due to like grades of students who do show up and like do go to class, but just don't do the work or don't understand the work. How would you think of ways to like fix that problem?
So how would you target students who, although go to school, just do not have the grades to meet meet the necessary, or do not have the necessary grades to graduate? Like, what solution would you give to those students who can't graduate?
Well, that's a very complex issue, and a lot of what you were saying about creating more engaging classes and having more hands-on activities could really probably help people to be more engaged in school and boost their grades. Also, I think that offering a reward system and having people actually be committed to school would change some of the culture around school and a lot of people's mindsets. And maybe that affects people who are going to school anyway, just maybe are a little bit apathetic about it, and help them to try harder and engage more and maybe graduate.
Can I add to that?
Okay, but that's going to be the last question.
For the students that attend studies and graduation suites as well, how could you help the students that are dedicated to going to school but don't have the transportation? For myself, I have to take the train to school and I don't always have money to take the train.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we help the students that need transportation to go to school?
How can you help students who need transportation to get to school?
I can go.
You want to go?
One of the things that the environmental club at Cross kind of wants is for the return of the free buses, and I think that was really helpful. I used to go a lot when it happened 2 years ago, and if we could see a return of that, or at least an application process to be eligible for free buses, like if you go to school somewhere, if you go to college somewhere, and adding that would be helpful to both the environment and the transportation issue.
How would you help students who need to get to school but don't have the necessary transportation to?
I feel like it's definitely a funding issue, something I want to fight for in our schools. Essentially, I do agree with having the free buses again. That was definitely helpful, but I don't know if that's so ideal for that to happen again. So definitely working out funding for it and stuff like that for certain schools and certain students.
Thank you. One last question.
Okay, so at your level, how exactly do you enhance the K-12 education to better prepare students for life beyond high school? Like, what exactly are you going to do for middle schoolers? What are you going to do for elementary students? Because you talk a lot about like high school students, but like your representatives for like the whole community, and like what are you going to do for those kids?
How do you guys also want to, what's your plan to also, how will you represent kindergartners and middle schoolers who you also represent? Like, do you have any ideas for programs for them? Do you have any ideas for how we can connect the grades, like, have high schoolers connect with middle schoolers with kindergartners? Or?
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that I want to implement improves the culture in the school and the commitment people have to school. And in schools like ESUMS, where it's 6th grade through high school, that environmental club or gardening club or changing culture in the school, that people are more committed, can definitely rub off on some of the middle school students and create just a better school environment in general.
I definitely see more, I guess, connecting high schoolers with younger students, such as programs like Project Pride definitely does connect the students. So I feel like being able to possibly get funding for that to connect them to see problems that are also happening in middle schools, because students will tell people in high schools that do project fire stuff like that.
Okay, thank you guys so much for those questions. Really shows your Let's close off with closing statements. Vikram, do you want to start? Or you don't need a closing statement. You don't have to.
I'd love for you guys to give me suggestions and talk to me and have some conversations about this. I can give you my contact information or other ways to talk to me. Please, I urge you to come up and ask all the questions you need. And please, I just want you guys to understand where I'm coming from. And also, just thank you guys and kindly ask for your support.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be here and to represent. Honestly, you guys could come up to me. I want to be someone people are comfortable with talking to, and I hope you all have a great day. You guys can always come to talk.
Again, thank our moderator, John Carlos, for leading this discussion. And this concludes this portion. We're going to shut off Zoom, and then Ms. Abbott's going to share some information, and then we will have lunch right after. Yes, we still feeding you.